What's up, Lou?
Hold on, man.
Man, congrats first and foremost, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that.
No problem, man. I love the hat. I'm glad. I was gonna ask, but I already know you, so I knew you was gonna represent right.
Ah,
I knew you was gonna do it. Let's get into basketball first before we get into the coaching. So you can
okay.
start talking about your career as far as a basketball player first, and then we'll get into the other stuff.
Lou Richie, Bishopdale High School coach, born and raised in the town. Um, well, I started playing sports at an early age because my father was a PE teacher. He played basketball. Both my parents were the first in their family to go to college. They both went and graduated from Penn State University, and they both were teachers. My father in Berkeley Unified for 38 years, and my mom in San Francisco for 38 years. So, I had a balance of academics and athletics at a very early age. My dad being a PE teacher. So I had Nerf soccer balls, Nerf kickballs, Nerf footballs, when a lot of kids didn't have that stuff. So uh, let's see, I was at Sequoia School. It was when I started public school in Oakland, right off of Lincoln Avenue. And my parents divorced, so me and my mom moved into an apartment across the street from Sequoia, and my dad moved into a condo across the street from Tech.
Hmm.
So now I'm going between the east and the north, always trying to find parks and playgrounds because that's what we had, that's what we did. Um, so I created a strikeout league in the third grade, and
Hmm.
that's kind of where my organizational skills came from. My love of numbers and statistics. I used to keep the stats. I was called the professor on my first baseball team when I was 7 years old. After playing Young America, I played for Oaks Club, and from there, I wanted the repetition. I wanted to continue to get better at things that I wasn't that good at. And by the time I was 12, I was really really good in baseball. Played all stars, 13, 14, 15 with the likes of Terrell Lowry, and everyone thought I was going to go ahead and be a professional baseball player. And I played basketball, but I never played on a team. And I remember being at Bret Hart was the first time I really got exposed to playing, other people that were significantly better than me. So there was this one kid that played at Carter. His name was Andre Collier, and he moved into our neighborhood, the Sequoia neighborhood, after the seventh grade. And he started coming up and playing with me. And one day, he told me he bet me $5 he could beat me 21-0. Well, let's just say I owed him $5. And from that moment on, I became obsessed with doing things that people said I couldn't do. So he told me I shouldn't go to O'Dowd because there are these two other young brothers that were a year behind me that were just better than me. And their names were Eric Robinson and Jason Powell. And they played CYO. They played for Green Machine. So they played on Green Machine was like the elite AAU organization when I was coming up. So I go to O'Dowd, and I'm the first player to play Winter League varsity in O'Dowd history as a freshman.
Hmm.
I was really, really good in baseball. And basketball, I was on the freshman team.
Hmm.
And um, that spring, the end of the basketball season, we went to the state championship and we lost by one to Crenshaw at the Collie. And once I got a taste of that, I said, I'm not playing baseball anymore. I'm not. I'm not chasing butterflies outside. I want the bright lights. So, to everyone's chagrin, you know, I quit baseball and focused on basketball. Started finding a weight vests and strength shoes and lifting weights and playing everywhere I possibly could play. Um, Sophomore year, I played JV at O'Dowd. I got and those two freshmen came in and played JV with me, and the three of us were the nucleus of that JV team. And I got pulled up to varsity at the end of the year. So now I'm competing with and against those sophomores that had made varsity. So for me, every day in practice was competition. It was something I wanted to do. Junior year, I started reaching out to finding the best players in the Bay Area and playing with and against them. And I was the first guard off the bench for Odell. And that year we went to state championship. And by this time, I had surpassed those other sophomores that were playing, or now juniors that were on varsity. And state championship game, I came down with 6 seconds left and hit the game winner at the buzzer to beat Manual Arts um, at the Cali in front of 12, 15,000 people. Um, and they called it no good. They called it basket interference. So it went down as the most controversial shot in state history. So now people are starting to know me. I'm starting to get confident, and um, I just continued to grow my game. But I was hard headed, which worked against me because I wasn't the most coachable. So my coach, who's the number one, wins and losses in state history, Mike Phelps, he was fifth, all time in the country at that point. I'm sitting up there having disagreements with him about basketball. Like I'm trying to tell him. So my senior year, I battled with him. I wanted so much to have his approval, but I also wanted to do it my way. So him and I bumped heads my whole senior year. As a result, I started half the games my senior year. Now, my junior year, we were 32-1, and we were ranked top 25 in the country. And my senior year, we were all my height. So we had a lot of guards, and we just didn't do well in coach's system. Whether it was us not changing or him not changing. So so during my senior year, I had Division III schools recruiting me: Hawaii Hilo, Cal Poly, Pomona. I'm sorry, not Cal Poly. Pomona Pitzer, Claremont McKenna. Those level schools. But they were all financial aid, so I was gonna have to pay money. So I ended up playing baseball after the season, and I had a tremendous senior year. First pitch, first at bat, home run. Back to back games, home run. Prep of the week, all NorCal team, all league team. And I also started playing on the weekends with this AAU All Star team. So it's me, Jay Kidd, Sean Coulter, J.R. Ryder, Calvin Bird, Ray Kelly, Dwayne Fontana, some guys from the city. And it was coached by, rest in peace, Merv Booker. And they used to call him Cell Phone. And Merv would come pick me up, and we'd go to games, and we never lost. So now when you play with the best players, all of a sudden you can be pretty good. They can hide your flaws. But I was getting that love of basketball back versus always fighting with myself and my coach. So into my senior year, the Detroit Pistons had called to say that they were thinking about drafting me, and they wanted to know what were my options. And at that point, in my mind, I was just going to go to UCLA because it was the biggest school I got let into. And because my parents were academians, going to school meant more than anything else. So I told the Detroit Tigers I had no interest in playing baseball after high school. And I didn't get a college scholarship. So I just enrolled at UCLA. And part of my naivety is I didn't understand what UCLA was. I didn't know the lure of UCLA. And thinking that a kid could just go down there and walk on from Oakland to me just made sense. Whereas when I asked my high school coach, Mike Phelps, if he would, recommend me, and he said, I can't do that, Lou, because it hurts my credibility and any kid that comes after you.
Right.
And I never held any remorse towards him about that. I just figured that was his opinion and I'll just prove him wrong. So I had an uncle who coached at Wilson, a legendary high school coach. His name is Bobby Miles. And Bobby Miles was black. And he said that he would contact the assistant coach down there that he knew and that they would look out for me. And the assistant coach down there was Tony Fuller. He was from Detroit. And, I went into the offices and I met him. And he just said, hey, just work out. Tryouts will be October 15th. And, that's what you do. But Uncle Bobby had told me, you need to go meet the head coach. So I would go by every single day to meet Jim Herrick. And for whatever reason, he was never available. So I remember one day I went into the office and I knew the secretary by name. And I was like, hey, how you doing? She's like, hey, Lou. And I said, it's Coach Herrick here. I want to talk to him. And she said, oh, no, Lou, they're down taking team pictures. Team pictures? How can you take team pictures? I haven't made the team yet. Right. So I walked down to Poly Pavilion, and sure enough, they were taking team pictures. I was amazed at it. So Tony Fuller saw me, and he started walking over to me. Hey, Lou, how you doing? I was like, I'm doing good, Coach. Now, mind you, I'm 5'7" and a half.
Right.
17 years old. I have my Malcolm X glasses on, and I have a bi-level haircut with about 5 to 10 African medallions around my neck. So I said, I'm ready to meet Coach Herrick. So he walks back to Coach Herrick at half court and he points to me and they started laughing. So I'm like, what's behind me? What are they laughing at? So Coach Fuller walks back towards me and when he gets about 5 feet from me, I said, Coach Fuller, what'd he say? And Coach Fuller walked right by me without saying anything. I turned around, Coach Fuller, what did he say? And he walked up the stairs at Pauley Pavilion. Now, as a young African American, I mean, I was distraught that this person who I thought I was supposed to, look out to, was supposed to be there to help me,
Right.
kind of shunned me. So that was a very, not pivotal, but I remember that moment like it was yesterday. So October 15th came, and I remember I had my Sony Walkman, and Janet Jackson had just come out with her album 1914. And it was a foggy morning, and I went down to Poly at 8 a.m., and we did 3-on-3. That was our tryout.
Mm.
And at the end, they said, hey, thanks for coming, and, we'll contact you if we're interested. So unbeknownst to me, the politics, they already had their walk-ons.
Right.
But also, I didn't do anything that made them think different.
Right.
So I was hurt. And I said, I wrote down a schedule. I said, every morning at 7 o'clock, I'm going to the men's gym. I'm going to work out and I'm going to hit the weights. Then I'm going to go to class. And then I'm going to go back to the men's gym with my strength shoes and my weight vest. I'm going to work on my Chris Jackson moves. And then I'm going to go to class. And then I'm going to eat lunch. And then at 3 o'clock, I'm going to the Wooden Center to play. Mm-hmm. And I did that. And I worked out 6 to 8 hours every day for the next year. So needless to say, I wasn't that good and I got a lot better. And I started becoming friends with the UCLA basketball team. So Mitchell Butler, Tracy Murray, Zan Mason, guys that were freshmen and weren't too big time.
Right.
And ended up playing the intramurals, won the championship, got MVP. And it was like one of the first times a black team had ever won, because usually the frats win and the frats know all the referees. And now you got the UCLA basketball team is actually coming to my intramural games. So I started working out with Pooh Richardson and some other pros because they would come back to UCLA. And Pooh, just being a down-to-earth dude, he didn't look at me as this scrub. He just looked at me as somebody that wanted to shoot hoop. Excuse me. So I remember one day we were in Poly, and I beat Pooh 8 out of 12 games, one-on-one. Now all of a sudden, I can beat an NBA player. Now, was he playing like his life depended upon it? Probably not, but I still beat him.
Right.
So now I started to get more and more confidence. And that summer I came back. I got introduced to Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, Chris Mullins, and I started working out with them and, started playing with all the older guys that were coming back. And everybody had seen how much I had improved, and I'm working out with Hook and Scotty Thurman and other, playground legends. So I'm not feeling intimidated by anybody.
Right.
So I went back down to school, and on October 15th, 1990, I went to tryouts, and it was at the Wooden Center this time. And I thought I played well, and I went home to my apartment in Santa Monica. And I got a phone call. It was on the answer machine. It was a voicemail from one of the assistant coaches saying they wanted me to come back to practice later that afternoon. So I went to practice, and there were 4 other walk-ons that were there with me. So they pulled us into a room and said, "Hey, you're gonna, be on this team for a week. You could get cut at any day. We're gonna see how you practice with the players and how it fits our needs. And if you make it to the end of the week, we'll let you know what we're going to do." So I'm excited. I got UCLA practice gear on. Oh, they were nut huggers, though. And I just went after it. And at the end of the week, I got a phone call, and the coach had me come back into the office. And actually, all of us were there. And they said, all of you are going to make the team. All 4 of you, all 4. Me, Chris Kenny, Dave Paulsell, and Desta Owens, Miles Owens' father. And they said, Lou, can you hang out for a minute afterwards? And they said, Lou, you know, we'll see how things go, but if you continue to do what you're doing, we want you to travel with the team.
Mm.
And that could be one week and not be the next.
Right.
So, um, I remember we had our first uh, blue and white scrimmage, and I had a hard time passing the ball to the wings. Like I wasn't reading the passing lanes well. It was just at such a higher level than I had played at O'Dowd.
Right.
But I didn't get down on myself. Coaches weren't really on my head because I'm nobody. So it wasn't like I had to go through mental games on the court with them.
Right.
And after the game, I didn't think I had played well, and I had the fourth longest line of fans that wanted my autograph after the game.
Right.
So they were there for Don McClain, Tracy Murray, Derek Martin, and then me and Mike Lanier. Mike Lanier he's in the Guinness Book of World Records for the tallest twin in the world, 7'6".
Wow.
So he was at 7'6". I'm at 5'8" because I probably had grown about an inch now. So the two spectacles, everyone wanted to get our autograph, and I just remember parents and kids come up to me and say, "Hey, you're like one of us. You're our height. We root for you."
Yeah.
And that, I mean, when you sign an autograph, I mean, you know how that is, Q. That's one of the best feelings in the world. I remember that at the Coliseum. You go to a game, can I get your autograph? And it's like, I'm just Lou Richie. I'm nobody. So um, I kept getting better because what I would do is we had practice from 1 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 3 o'clock, I'd go with my UCLA practice gear on to the Wooden Center.
Mm.
So while everybody else was, chilling, I'm getting another 2 hours in every day.
Right.
So once again, I'm working out for 4 hours and I'm lifting weights. So that's another 5 hours that I'm doing on top of everybody else just doing two or two and a half.
Right.
End of the season comes, we're in league play, and Sports Illustrated wants to do an article on me. And they were doing articles on walk-ons.
Mm-hmm.
And they had dubbed me one of, if not the best walk-on in the country. And after that article came out, I started getting a lot more attention because when I got in the game, we're either up 20 or down 20.
Right.
So I'm not playing against a Quentin Thomas. I'm playing against that scrub like me. So I'm trying to make highlights. So I'm throwing alley oops. I'm having fun.
Right.
They're like, "Who is this walk on that's throwing alley oops?" And I did an impersonation of Dick Vitale. I was a big Dick Vitale fan.
Mm-hmm.
So ABC came to me. We were playing Arizona, and they said, "Hey, we hear you do a good impersonation." And actually, I take that back. That practice, Dick Vitale came, and he came over to talk to Ed O'Bannon, who now was my roommate. Sean Tarver and Ed O'Bannon were two of the top 5 players in the country, and we're like brothers. Just once again, no ego, just great young men. And Dick Vitale asked Ed about his knee because he had blown out his knee.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I answered for him. And that's how me and Dick Vitale started talking. So the producers came to me and they said, "Hey, can you do a monologue, a script, tomorrow before the game?" So I had my all walk on team and this, that, and the other, and it's all about UCLA, baby. So they aired that at halftime, and people are like, "What is Lou Richie doing down there? How did he get on TV? How does it, So I just felt like I belonged. And now at this point, my coaches are like, "Lou, you're not a scholarship player. Like, just be a walk on, stay in your lane." And I didn't understand why you would say that to a kid.
Right.
So we would study all the time in the coaches' offices. And, I like to go through stuff. So I found the cell phone.
Yeah.
And, we all joked about who was going to take it at the end of the season. Like, I'm taking that phone. No, I'm taking that phone. So then the season comes, we're studying for finals. I'm like, "Hey, y'all, who's taking that cell phone?" And everybody's like, "Nah, I'm cool." And I'm like, I'm from the town. I got, I got to be hard. That's my phone. So I took that phone and I took it home. And that whole summer, I'm in the town with a big brick cell phone. I'm like, how Lou get that? Man, they paying y'all like that down UCLA? Man, I'm about to be a star, baby. All you heard was dee doo, dee doo. I didn't think anything of it. And then my teammates, I reached out to them and like, "Hey Lou, man, people been down here asking questions. Like, anybody that's had a cell phone, a cell phone came up missing. It was Coach Godfrey's."
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I started getting worried. So I told my mom about it, and we drove to Bakersfield, put it in a box, and mailed it back to UCLA.
Mhm.
So I go back to UCLA for my third year, and now Tyus Edney's coming in. So I'm like, I got to show the coach that I can earn the scholarship. And on my birthday, September 29th, 1991, we had our first team meeting at 3 o'clock. And I was always late. Coach Herrick used to get on me. He's like, son, you're a walk on. You can't be late, son. I get to the meeting, and Coach Godfrey says, hey, Lou, Coach Herrick wants to talk to you for a second.
Mhm.
So I walk in, and Coach Herrick says, son, how was your summer, son? I said, it's great. I worked out with Tim Hardaway, Chris Mullins. I'm ready to earn the scholarship. And he was like, well, son, things don't work out the way we want them to. He said, we have our walk-ons for the year already, and the authorities want to talk to you outside, son. So I went outside and had to come up with a story so that I wouldn't be, prosecuted.
Right.
And I called my mom, and I knew of a loophole in the UC system that in an emergency, you could take a year off and still get back into school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'll just go to Merritt and play. And worst case scenario is I'll just come back and re-enroll at UCLA.
Right.
Mom was like, no, don't come home. You're going to be on the corner smoking and drinking with all your partners.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back and I had a really good year, but I tore ligaments in my ankle playing at Sequoia on some dunk courts.
Yeah.
So for me, it was no big deal. So I played my year at Merritt, all conference, all state, had a great year. And we lost in the Elite Eight at San Jose City. I scored the last 16 points straight before I fouled out.
Mm-hmm.
And I had USC and other D3 and D2 schools. And USC, it was me or Bert Harris, and they did their research. They called UCLA. What do you think UCLA is going to tell them?
What happened?
This kid's a thief.
Yeah.
So USC took me off their board. So I was like, I can't just go to a D3 school and hoop. I'll go to Cal if I have to because I got to get that education.
Right.
So then a savior had come into my life a year prior, Uncle Sam. So Sam was coming to all my games. Sam was, look me in the eye, shake my hand, firm handshake. It's all about academics. And Uncle Sam said, if I made a highlight tape, he would send it out for me.
Mm-hmm.
So you see what I was just doing when you got on.
Right.
I was trying to help the next kid. So I made that highlight tape for Allendale. My good buddy Kenji, his father, had one of those cassettes where you could put one in and put another one in dub and make it.
Right.
I made a highlight tape, and he sent it out. And 2 weeks later, I had 3 scholarship offers: Nicholls State, Clemson, and Georgetown. And Nicholls State, I didn't know anything about Nicholls State, and the coach sounded so Southern. I was fearful of that.
Right.
Georgetown had another guard that was really good named Joey Browner, and he was my year. He was going to be a junior. So I didn't know about going there and competing with him. And then Clemson had a senior guard, Chris Whitney, and I didn't know anything about him. So I just assumed that he was weaker, or that at least if I couldn't play my junior year, I'd be able to start my senior year.
Right.
And went to Clemson, got out there, and the third game, I had to sit out the first semester. After the third game, I was starting, and my senior year, all ACC, led the league in assists and steals, and kind of wasn't tripping off ball to be a pro, because no one ever said I was. I wanted to be a playground legend. That's all I wanted to be, which my ceiling wasn't high enough. I should have had a higher ceiling, or I should have thought things different. So I just assumed I would go overseas and play ball, but I had made Uncle Sam a promise never to lie to him, that I would come back to Oakland and help kids, that I would get my degree. So I had to go back and get my degree. So I went back and got my degree, and then, I got 3 women pregnant on my birthday, and I got 4 kids. I'm graduating from college, and I got 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, the overseas CBA was short-lived, and I got hurt. So I remember being in Yakima, and I wasn't explosive because I tore my hamstring in a pro-am game. So that's when the ball stopped.
That's a hell of a story, Lou. And I just appreciate you being honest, because I feel like as many, especially you and I, and you more, but you seen everything. You know, you seen me grow up when I was little. You worked me out. You've worked. I mean, you have Jalen now being a young phenom at Odell. You was with Johnny Bryant. You were with a lot of different players. And I think that the thing that I've never heard a lot of parts in that story, as much as I've been around you, but the thing I never heard was the part where Uncle Sam told you to come back. And I think that's special because ever since I've known you, since I've been a kid, you've always been giving back to Oakland, to the Bay Area, to whomever needs it. You know, what was it? What was it about giving back that you fell in love with?
Um, well, Uncle Sam had started me running camps
Mm-hmm.
when I was at Clemson. I came back from Clemson and I did the Tim Hardaway camp. And, you know, I like leading. I like the joy of helping, seeing my parents be teachers and always giving back.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the connecting. I like the social interaction. So it was very natural for me to enjoy helping kids. And when I came back, Uncle Sam he turned me loose. You know, he was running a camp, and then he saw how I was like doing stuff, and he was like, "Luke, go ahead, do it, do it."
Right.
So now I'm getting kudos from him and Tim Hardaway. Like I feel like that's my element.
Right.
So I went off into the corporate world, and so and part of the reason why I like to help out so much and give back is because of, like you said, so Verizon Wireless.
Mm-hmm.
I helped start up Verizon Wireless. It was
Wow.
called Pacific Bell Mobile Services in 1996.
Okay.
So my best friend who had graduated from Cal, we had grew up together. We were best friends since we were 7. He said, "Lou, I got a job for you." So I'm making what, $40,000 a year
Mm-hmm.
as 22, 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one in my community is doing that.
Right.
So from there, I went to Target and I was a store manager at San Leandro Target.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I moved back to the South because I wanted to be around my children.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was there, I had a notion I wanted to come back and help at Odell because I enjoyed my coach, but I also knew he had some shortcomings, and I felt I could be that bridge between him and particularly kids of color.
Right.
So I was gonna go back, and then my same friend, he had left Verizon, it was Pacific Bell. He went
Mm-hmm.
to U.S. West, and then he went to Harvard Business School,
Okay.
and he started up a new company with some of his friends from Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Lou, I want to fly you up here. You're really good in customer service. You like to help people." So that was another thing that people had seen in me. And he's like, "I want you to run the customer care department of this new company,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna pay you $100,000 a year to do it."
Hmm.
I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
So he flew me up, and I said, "What is this company?" He said, "Well, we're gonna provide high-speed wireless internet service to the country."
Hmm.
So back then, everything was wired or dial-up.
Right.
And the same way you have a laptop right now that's wireless,
Right.
in 2000, that was a company that I came into.
Hmm.
And we raised $32 million.
That's crazy.
But we were ahead of our time and we spent all the money in 10 months. So we would go around Boston with our laptops with no wires, sitting at bars or restaurants surfing, trying to get a buzz about it.
Right.
But anyway, the company went under, and that's when I knew it was time for me to come back. So I came back and I got with my coach and I started training. And then I run into B. Ward, who owed me some money. He was like, "Lou, I got one, Lou." I don't know what that means. And then I get around the soldiers and I get around Jose Caraballo, and he's like, "Lou, I got a Mickey D." And I'm like, "What's a Mickey D?" A McDonald's All American. His name is, DeMarcus Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
And then I meet LeBron at the Elite Eight. And because I had access to Leon and Johnny, now I have access to Allende and you and Bang Bang and
Mm-hmm.
Mondo. And no one had really a place for everyone to go hoop. So I'm like, Odell's not that good. I need the Quentin Thomases in the gym so that we're not intimidated by Q. We need to have Antonio's and Leon's come play against us. And that's how the whole basketball thing came together. And then Cal, they knew that I was I started to get involved with kids,
Right.
whether it be rebels or soldiers. So Cal was like, Lou, you can run our open gym up here at Cal. And
Mm.
that's how we would bring 40, 50. I mean, we brought 50, 60 kids up there
Easy.
to Cal. I remember one time we went to RSF and we had like 6 courts playing, and we snuck parents up in there. And for me, that was like being at home. So that whole giving back, and then the perspective I could bring, like you know, there's only 2 All-ACC players in Oakland history,
Right.
and that's me and Q. You
Right.
know, DeMarcus, I mean, he's from California. He's up there in SAC. But the things that we've seen and getting our degrees and understanding that it's bigger than basketball, and then still having our friends and our family that make those decisions that, lend them time behind bars.
Right.
I mean, we can say, hey, young fella, don't do this over here.
Right.
So I became, kind of that Pied Piper where I had been places that other people hadn't,
Right.
and I was still able to play and beat and compete with the elite players. So, when someone can compete against you, you have a lot more respect than someone that's just sitting on the sideline yelling at you,
Right.
and you don't want to hear that. So that's how it's kind of been. Is I wanted to make sure I held my promise to Uncle Sam, and to make sure kids knew that basketball didn't have to be the way out.
Right.
When basketball stops, what are you going to do? And like I told Johnny, I said, if you're not willing to give back to the town, and grind and get gritty, then don't come back to Oakland.
Mm.
Stay in Chapel Hill, stay in Utah, and find yourself there. But if you come back here, you have an obligation to share
Right.
your story and help the youngsters out.
Now that's deep, and I commend you for that, Lou. I think what a big part of what you're just saying is that you felt obligated to give back to home. You felt obligated to give back to the youth. You felt obligated to give back to even parents, the knowledge that you had and you shared. That's the special thing that I like and I love about Dunk Mama Media as far as giving not only athletes, coaches, but anybody in the sports world an outlet or a platform to show that not only their story, but also, like you just said, it's a lot of people when they're done with sports. It seemed like you had great people in your corner, even if it was Uncle Sam, if it was your parents you looked up to where you saw, even if you didn't realize at a young age, it seemed like you saw beyond basketball.
I did, but I still got lost. I got
Yeah.
caught up. When you got friends and family in that lifestyle, and you hang out with them, I
Yeah.
mean, it's easy to get caught up, and not understanding that, you know, going to jail is not an option.
Hmm.
Breaking a law is not an option. And it took me a long time to figure that out.
Hmm.
Uh, like right now, I will never see the walls of inside a jail ever again.
Right.
So having that wherewithal to, I know it's right, I know it's wrong, and there's nothing that's going to make me cross that boundary. I don't even want to play because a lot of times as athletes, we're risk takers,
Right.
right? As a point guard, throwing that alley oop is a risk,
Right.
until you make it so it's not a risk because you've done it so many times. But, you know, throwing a bounce alley oop, like the first time I did that in a game and made it, it was like, wow,
Yeah.
So a lot of times that crosses over, that deviant behavior on the court to off the court.
Right.
It's nothing wrong with me running the stop sign, or there's nothing wrong with me cheating on this test. No, it is.
Right.
And
Right.
now in this digital era, the mistakes that I could make, you know, Jalen Lewis can't make that mistake.
Right. Right.
Not only is it on Snapchat, is it on YouTube, is it on the news, but there's also a digital imprint that will stay with him forever. You should do things in South Carolina, and DMV, they didn't even have South Carolina in the same database back here in California. So those types of things, trying to let young people know, is huge.
With a platform like Dunk Mama Media and you being the type of person you are, how do you feel like this platform is going to help a lot of people beyond just athletes and parents?
So, I was on a Zoom with Conzo Martin, Mike Boynton, and Damon Stoudemire, and a host of other college and AU coaches the other night. And right now, everyone's reevaluating the system.
Right.
How can we better prepare our student athletes for life after basketball?
Right.
So many times, like myself, I mean, I didn't have a resume when I came out of Clemson. I didn't have a job lined up when I came out of Clemson. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right.
I had my twins were being born, you know, within 30 days of me graduating.
Right.
So I got in a Jeep with a young lady and she drove me and dropped me off in Charlotte. And I didn't know what I was going to do.
Right.
So I know they're talking about having, a payout for a college graduate. Whether it's 5, 10, 20, $25,000. Um, Making sure that by their junior year they have a resume, that they're doing internships. So there's professional development and career development for our student athletes, particularly those that are of color, so
Right.
that when they come out, now you can hold a coach accountable. Does how many of your student athletes have jobs when they come out? They talked about Dean Smith. He gave a stipend to everyone that graduated from college. I didn't know that. And
Mhm.
it was like, yeah, it probably was illegal, but a lot of people know about it. They said, why
Right.
don't we make that legal?
Right.
Um, so I think, and that same thing that I've tried to do at O'Dowd is, people talk about USC and Notre Dame, and they have this incredible network.
Mhm.
It's a lot like the coaching tree at UNC. So I said, well, why don't we do that at O'Dowd? Let's hire somebody who can, when Quentin Thomas goes to North Carolina, can say, hey, Q, here's who you get in contact when you get on campus, and here's someone that can help you with a job.
Mhm.
And then when you're getting ready to graduate, there's steps along that. So, hey, Q, you need to do an internship here, and then let's work on your resume. And when you graduate, you already have a job waiting for you.
Right.
So I think those things, and it sounds like, that, these are some things that, the Dunk Mama Media, can be a part of and can enhance. And to me, that's huge because, I've been doing this for years, trying to network and connect people. Like Ivan Rabb's little brother. Um, when people were recruiting Ivan, all attention is on him. And
Right.
you know this. I mean, I remember getting a phone call from Kansas about you, and and the question was, who's going to be the decision maker? And I said, it's not going to be me. I mean, I work with Q. He might ask me some advice. I might give him some, but I never tell a kid where to go to college. And I never got a phone call. That was Roy. Actually, it was Roy when he was at Kansas.
Mhm.
And I never got a phone call from him again because I was honest. And I'm sure you remember how people treated your sister or didn't treat your sister when they came on the visit.
Right.
So with Ivan, I told him because Ivan's grandparents didn't look like Ivan.
Mhm.
I said, remember how people treat your grandparents.
Right.
Remember how people treat your younger brother, Tamar. So when Tamar, he didn't get into the college that he wanted to out of high school. So I put him with my buddy who was the dean over at La Cañada.
Right.
Got him enrolled, and we said, hey, you're going to be a 4.0 student, and you'll go to the choice of your college. So we got him involved with student affairs over there, and he said he wanted to go to Stanford. So I reached out to two professors at Stanford and said, hey, can you sit down with this young man, look at his application, his essay, and his SAT and his grades, and tell him what he needs to do.
Right.
So they basically told him, you're not getting into Stanford. They said your SAT isn't high enough, and Stanford only takes 20 transfers a year. Q 20.
Wow.
So he came back dejected. I said, "Why are you dejected?" He said, "Well, they think my SAT is too low." I said, "It is. You need to borrow some money from Ivan, and get an SAT tutor, and get someone to work on your application." So he didn't do that. So he finished out his year in junior college, 4.0, and he applied to a bevy of schools. And he called me in the spring and said, Coach Lou, listen to the schools I got into: Columbia, Georgetown, USC, UCLA, where his best friend was going, Santa Barbara, UC Davis. And I said, the last one is Stanford? He said, no, I didn't apply. Why did you not apply, Tamar? He was like, I didn't have the confidence. I said, what's the last school you got into? He said, Cal Berkeley. And I said, really? He said, and they're giving me the President Regent Scholarship. I was
Wow.
like, what's that? He said, it's worth $35,000 a year.
Wow.
I'm like, now we've done it.
Yeah.
I'm telling Tamark the whole time, you're going to make more money than your brother.
Mhm.
Like, that should be your goal.
Right.
And you should manage your brother's money. So I got Tamark an internship with my wife's father. He's a
Mhm.
CPA, so he's an accountant. So Tamark worked with him last summer. Then I hooked him up with my buddy Will Nettles, who's someone you should definitely talk to at some point. He
Okay.
just secured $250 million. He has an investment company. He does private equity.
Okay.
But but Bill, I mean Will, he had wanted to work with Ivan. So I said, work with Tamar. So this summer he interned for Will Nettles.
All right.
Now Will, he went to Dubai and he said he wasn't coming home until he made $10 million. So he's back. So the last piece of the story is Tamar was doing two internships this summer, one with Will Nettles and one with this real estate firm. And I said, that's really aggressive. He said, well, working from home, I can manage it.
All right.
So I said, what are you going to do when the school year starts? And he said, what do you mean? I said, you should offer that you're going to keep the internship. He said, why would I do that? I said, because if you work for free, how many young black males are coming out of Cal with a High School of Business degree and a 4.0?
Right.
So he kept that internship. He called me a month ago. They offered him a six-figure salary when he graduates in May.
I love it.
So, I mean, those things like that, that is what should be done. There needs to be a process for that, an organization that does that. And it really started with the organization I was in high school called Inroads.
All
And
right.
it took kids of color and it put them in corporate settings in the summer where you got paid. I think you're spot on with what you're doing, Q.
Man, I'm blessed, man. I can't lie, Lou. And just like I always tell people, to have these platforms and be able to reach out to people to interview that you know personally. Like again, it's different when you do an interview and you might not know the person and you're learning them as the interview goes. But even with you, it's like, again, you've known me since I was 10, 11, 12 years old. And to still hear your story, it helps me, you know? Um, but I just want to thank you, man, like for your time today, the story, and just everything you give back to Oakland, everything you've done for me, my sister, and way beyond.